fatigue. Okay, so what is it that causes muscles to fatigue? Well, the most obvious answer to that is just if they run out of energy. All right, so if they're lacking in ATP, then they're not going to be able to contract as much or as strongly. But there are a couple of other reasons that can contribute to muscle fatigue as well. If the glycogen stores start to run short, then that's another reason why ATP might end up being in short supply. But we can also look at reasons having to do with ions, just if the ion balances haven't had a chance to reaccumulate where they need to, that can result in muscle fatigue as well. And then there's also there's a whole other sort of fatigue that has to do with the neurons getting fatigued. So maybe it's not actually the muscle cell itself, but maybe it's the neuron that is supposed to be stimulating that muscle. So different reasons for muscle fatigue. When we exercise regularly, we know that our muscles do start to adapt. We get stronger over time if we continue to exercise, and we're able to carry on exercise for longer periods of time. What's responsible for that? So how do muscles adapt during exercise training? Well, for one thing, they start storing more energy reserves. So intracellularly, inside of the cells, they will start storing more triglycerides. So that's an energy reserve, right? That's the first energy reserve that's used during light exercise. And then they also, this is one that you may know from intro biology courses, when you exercise a lot, your mitochondria are stimulated to divide. So they divide and multiply, and that's just ultimately helping the cell to be able to produce more ATP. Okay, the muscle fibers themselves can also be modified. We can change the number and the type of muscle fibers. We're not going to be getting into different types of muscle fibers in this class. That's a little bit more of a detailed discussion. If you're going into kinesiology, you'll be seeing this more, but we do have different types of muscle fibers. They're sort of specialized for different tasks. Anyway, muscles can be modified over time as a result of regular exercise being done. Okay, let's revisit reflexes. This is something we have done in lab. We've checked out our reflexes together a while back when we were in person. Reflexes, now that we know a little bit about muscle structure, let's see how these actually are working. So if we look at this picture, what we're seeing here, this is a bone, a tendon, and a muscle. All right, so the muscle is connected to the bone via this tendon. The muscle has a nerve that innervates it, and we're just going to zoom in on that region right there, the nerve ending, and how it interfaces with the muscle. So what we can see over here in the blown up picture, what we can see is this muscle fiber that I am hovering over right now. This muscle fiber has a nerve shown in orange, and this nerve has a lot of it's almost like fingers that wrap around the muscle fiber. Okay, so that right there, that is a connection that allows a reflex to be initiated. When this muscle fiber gets stretched, this nerve will be stimulated, so that's a sensory nerve, and that signal will get carried into the spinal cord to an interneuron, and then that's going to end up activating a motor neuron. So this is a quick reflex. This doesn't involve the brain. It's a reflex that can be initiated just through the action of what's in the spinal cord itself. So reflexes are very quick for that reason. There's another type of nerve shown as well in yellow, and this one these are actually called flower sprays at the end, not kidding, flower spray endings, and these nerves are specialized for detecting sustained stretches. So in orange, this is more for just quick stretches. Oh, my muscle is being stretched, maybe I need to correct my posture very quickly. In yellow, these flower spray nerve endings, these detect more sustained stretches, right? So like after you exercise, when you intentionally stretch, that's the sensory feeling that we're getting is from those neurons. So let's revisit the knee-jerk reaction. Okay, so we tried this out in lab together. Most of you had knee-jerk reactions, which is a good thing. For some people, it's harder to get the knee-jerk reaction to display. We're all just a little bit different. So anyway, right here's the hammer. And when we use the hammer on the tendon right below the knee, what's happening is this whole section, right? This whole section, it's all connected. It's one piece. This tendon connects up to this muscle ultimately. And so when we use the hammer, this muscle is actually being stretched just a little bit. When that happens, the sensory neuron sends a signal into the spinal cord, and then a motor neuron sends a signal back to the muscle and tells it to contract. Okay, and then we see, as a result of that, if this shortens, that's going to pull the rest of the leg upwards a little bit, and that's the knee jerk that we see. Let's look at a couple of other reflexes that we have as well. That's the very familiar one. Next up, we have one that's probably not quite as familiar. We have what are called Golgi tendon organs. These are little reflex sensors that are embedded in our tendons. Okay, so not only do we have reflexes initiated due to muscles being stretched, but we also have reflexes due to stretch in the tendons. So this one is interesting. The Golgi tendon organs, so they are located, again, at the tendon, and when these are stretched, something very specific happens. If your tendon is being stretched, what we don't want to have happen is for that tendon to tear. We don't want a rip. That would be very bad. It takes a long time to heal. So what the body does, if the tendon is being stretched, it will actually send a signal through neurons. It will send a signal that will inhibit the muscle. So in this case, the muscle is not going to contract, rather it's intentionally not going to contract, right? Because what would happen if it did contract? If it contracted, that's going to put even more strain on this tendon and be more likely to cause a tear. So this is a different type of reflex. It's an inhibitory reflex. Okay, let's see here. We also have, wrapping up our reflexes, we have with the nervous system, we have what's called reciprocal innervation. And this comes back to the idea of having antagonistic pairs of muscles. So I think I used the example of the biceps and the triceps. They're an antagonistic pair. They cause us to do opposite motions. So with regards to reflexes, okay, let's just follow through what's happening here. If we activate a muscle stretch receptor, okay, so activate a spindle apparatus, that will send a signal to the spinal cord. And what's going to happen, we've already seen this, the muscle will be activated to contract, to maintain posture or do whatever. But at the same time, the antagonistic muscle is going to be inhibited. Okay, so the reflex, it's sort of like the body wants it to be a one-way correction, not a two-way sort of reaction. So reciprocal innervation, the fact that neurons innervate antagonistic muscles, okay, one of those muscles can be activated, the other one can be inhibited. This is something that allows reflexes to work really well and not get confused with each other. When you, I think our textbook goes into a little bit more detail on this. There's also something called double reciprocal innervation, and this has to do with dealing with the two sides of the body. So if you, for example, if you step on something sharp on the floor, Legos, if you step on something sharp, your reaction is to pull up your foot, right? Because you want to get off of the sharp thing that you stepped on. At the same time, your other foot needs to go down to the ground quickly in order to support your weight. So we've got a different type of a reflex going on the two sides of the body. And this is all possible due to the way that the neurons are mapped onto antagonistic muscle pairs. So the name of that was double reciprocal innervation. It's two reciprocal innervations involved at the same time.